The way the average person should think of Bitcoin is as their savings. And at the end of the day, this technology, I believe, is a superior savings technology. So what the halving does is it changes the fair value. Well, why? Well, because if you think about it, the miners, their costs are fixed. Electricity cost, miner cost. And so when the halving occurs and the block rewards get cut in half, in theory, a whole bunch of miners have to go out of business unless the price rises. So let's say we only get to 160 this cycle. Okay, then fair value will continue to accrete. The next cycle, we hit gold equivalents. Up until this point, we went from science project, right? That first 5 years where it was the first they ignore you. A bunch of nerds and geeks playing with your magic internet money, 2009 to 15, actually 6 years. And then we kind of got a little bit of adoption, some, normal people, I would say, started to buy. And it was the then they laugh at you phase. Aha! Nerds, geeks, play with your magic internet money. Last year, 2022, or 2 years ago, 2022, we entered the then they fight you phase. And Warren and all of those guys and gals, JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, they're like, hey, we hate this because look, fundamentally, blockchain technology and Bitcoin in specific as the first use case of blockchain technology fundamentally disrupts financial services. The same way the internet disrupted media and commerce, the way the printing press disrupted the church way back when. So the question on the ETFs, BlackRock, 5 years ago, Larry Fink, it's an index of money laundering. It's for bad people, terrorists, and you crazy. No, we hate it. June of last year, Larry's like, I'm in, and applied for an ETF. I'm like, it's over. It was definitely going to be approved. I started talking about it. And look, I was wrong. I thought he would be the only one to be approved. I thought they'd pull a really fast one and say, look, Larry's part of us. He's part of the group. And so we want him to be the king. And we want all the others that are upstarts, like 21 shares, which we own a piece of, and Bitwise, which we own a piece of. You guys can't play. Thankfully, I was wrong. And so they approved them all. And what it does is it goes from technology savvy people, young people, to myself and all my friends, right? The boomers. All of the accounts at Merrill Lynch and Bank of America and UBS and everywhere else that bought this, security, it'd be a violation of US law. So there'd be some ramifications. And you can say, oh, eminent domain for national security. Okay, let's see how that flies and how many votes you lose. But here's the problem. What does that do for the rest of us? We're happy, right? It's like Satoshi Nakamoto said, what happens when coins are lost or stolen? Consider it a donation to the rest of the community. As long as there's one left, it doesn't have to be one Satoshi, 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. As long as that isn't under the control of the evil BlackRock, the whole value of the network goes up, no matter how many you cancel. And at the end of the day, this technology, I believe, is a superior savings technology. 100%. It is gold, right? And gold is money. And this is the part that it just gets lost in all of the nonsense and all of the discussion. At the end of the day, gold has been money for 5,000 years. And what do I mean by that? Money is an asset that exists in the absence of a liability. Okay, there are a couple other assets that you could say are like that, platinum or silver, but they don't have the belief and custom that a single ounce of gold for 5,000 years has bought a fine person's suit. Pretty great store of value. Ups and downs of currencies, 775 paper currencies in the history of the world, 3/4 of them gone, no longer exist. Wow. Gone down 100%. and the rest are on their way to down 100%. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It never changes. So the price went up. Bitcoin didn't grow. It didn't get more efficient. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. What happened was the currency that we all associate with it, right? Where you're sitting, it's in Aussie dollars. Where I'm sitting, it's in US dollars. But there wasn't a bear market in Venezuela. They've been making new all-time highs for years because the bolivar keeps going to zero. And if you were smart enough or fortunate enough or lucky enough to take a small amount of your wealth, it didn't even have to be a large amount, just a small amount, and move it out of bolivars into Bitcoin, you saved yourself. And I don't know if you've ever heard Wences Casares speak. And if you haven't, if people listen to this don't know who he is, you should seek him out. Wences talks about this. He was one of the early Bitcoiners, super early.
Yeah.
He built Zappo, which then became part of Coinbase. It's like the Swiss bank of custody. And Wences talked about 3 times, not once, not twice, 3 times, his family in Argentina lost everything.
Yeah.
Like literally everything, and had to start over because the government devalued their currency. People forget 100 years ago, well, 120 years ago now, 120 years ago, Argentina was the 3rd most powerful country in the world, 3rd largest country in the world. And today they're an also ran banana republic. And it's because of bad leadership, kleptocracy, corruption, all the things that happen everywhere. And started with Rome. It happened in Spain. It happened in the Netherlands. It happened in the UK. It's happening in America right now. When you start talking about exponential growth, that's when people really get messed up. Because the simplest example, if I take 20 linear steps, I'm at the other side of my office, right? If I take 20 exponential steps, I high-five you twice.
Let's go.
Around the world twice.
Superpower.
And so when we start talking about exponential growth and we start talking about trillions, like we just approved a bill here in the United States, $1.2 trillion spending bill. $1 trillion, like you and I would have to sit here together for 31,710 years, which would be most unpleasant. You'd miss surfing and I'd miss my son's lacrosse game. That's a long time. And we got to spend $1 every second. That's 1 trillion. And so when we start talking about this big number, it's crazy. And so it becomes unreal. So when I say that the price of Bitcoin will easily, I think without even trying hard, go to $500,000.
Yeah.
So what the halving does is it changes the fair value. Well, why? Well, because if you think about it, the miners, their costs are fixed. Electricity cost, miner cost. And so when the halving occurs and the block rewards get cut in half, in theory, a whole bunch of miners have to go out of business unless the price rises. So what we've seen in every cycle up to this point is a doubling of the fair value to adjust for the decrease in block rewards. Makes sense. But that movement that's built in, hard-coded in the code from Satoshi himself, that code then attracts attention. And, it's not politically popular, but true. The vast majority of people who are traders happen to be male. Males have genetically, back to our long-distance ancestors, the hunter gene, right? And so if someone were to walk by my door out there, right, I would look. And if it ain't moving, I can't see it. My wife says, get the ketchup. I go to the refrigerator. Honey, there's no ketchup. She walks up, grabs the ketchup. It's not moving. I can't see it. So my point is, once that price starts moving, all the traders, mostly male, pile in. And then the gamblers come in and the speculators and they lever up. And then we get to the overpriced level, usually 2.3 times the fair value. So let's say fair value this cycle, 50. We're going to double. But this time we're not going to double because now we have ordinals. Ordinals allow there to be transaction fees, so the miners can get compensated not just from block rewards. So maybe the fair value only goes to 80K. Okay, let's just be conservative, 80. Double, that's 160. So let's say we only get to 160 this cycle. Okay, then fair value will continue to accrete. The next cycle, we hit gold equivalents. And gold equivalents, which is about 6 trillion. Everybody says 12. No. Half the gold in the world is jewelry and chalices, and that doesn't count. It's the monetary value of gold at central banks and in those big coins that matter. So that's about 6 trillion. 6 trillion, divided by, call it, 15 million coins, because there's been some lost or stolen, gives you about a 400K price. And then we blow through that a little bit, and that gets us to the 500K. This year-ish, more fiat will be converted into Bitcoin than the previous 15 years put together. So over the 15 years, there's somewhere in the mid 200 billions, I don't have the exact number, of fiat that's been converted into Bitcoin. Now we have a $1.3 trillion market cap, but that isn't 1.3 trillion getting converted, right? Some got converted at pennies on the dollar. Some got converted at 70,000. So that 300 billion number comes from, there's 30 trillion owned by boomers. Okay, 30 trillion globally. Because here's the problem. 7,300 Bitcoin needed to buy every day today on average, only 900 being created.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a problem. So that means someone else, someone listening here or somebody else has to sell, right? Well, I know I'm not selling mine. I know Pomp's not selling his, and you're not selling yours. So who's selling? Well, we found out the other day there was, a wallet from 2010, hadn't traded in 14 years.
Yeah.
We sold 1,000. Not a lot, but 1,000. And everyone says, I'll never sell. Here's the thing. There's a price at which you'll sell some. Because here's the thing. Yeah. The way the average person should think of Bitcoin is as their savings. So when do you spend your savings? When you need it, right? Do you have a college tuition payment? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to start a business? So every week you should be buying